All right. So, for the longest time, as I've been part of the industry, I sometimes feel that we think of product discovery in a very limited way. And it is my endeavor today that I'll hopefully impress upon you the fact that product discovery is much more important. It is more than a transaction for you and your customers, and how it can become a competitive advantage. So I'll talk about these three things. First, we'll talk about the complexity, why doing product discovery well is so complex. I'll briefly touch upon promise of AI because I know there are a lot of discussions already, so we'll fleetingly touch upon it. And I'll talk a little bit about the future. So what essentially product discovery is, if you break it down to the first principles, all it is an information exchange between two parties, right? So on one side, you have the consumer who understands a lot about their motivations, their goals. And on the other side, there is the retailer or a brand who's providing a lot of products and services, and they know a lot about their products and services. And then in the middle, something needs to happen where you need to interpret the intent of the consumer and hopefully provide relevant content back to the consumer so that they then take the next step with us, right? So that's ideally how things should work. But in reality, in most cases, barring a few exceptions, the reality looks like this. So we as a retailer or a brand, we tend to talk a lot about my product, me, myself, and somewhere the intent signal gets broken, right? So rather than focusing more on the customer and the context and the problem they're trying to solve, we always, without thinking about them, we tend to spray our information on top of the customer. And I think the reason for that is that in most places, we're still stuck in this mindset of demographics and psychographics, which has worked really well for us in the past. But in today's world, it doesn't work, right? So we worry about how old she is, right? Or how much money does he make? How many children does he have? And based on that, we design our capabilities, we design our user journeys, we think of personas. But the beautiful thing about digital, such a profound thing about digital is rather than designing for what people say, you can design for what people actually do, right? Because we all, as we interact with these digital interfaces, with devices across the whole world, we leave these digital signals, and for some reason, we don't tend to account for all of that, and we still think of certain buckets and clusters of customers, and we bracket them into certain areas. So this is a framework which I find really useful. This is a framework used by Avinash Kaushik. And it really sets you think about the customer context, right? So on the top, you have the C segment, which is your total addressable audience. Then you have the think, which is your audience which may want to buy your product. This is the light commercial intent. And then you have the do, which are the people who are looking to buy stuff right now. And the problem, and again, this is something which I have seen a lot in the industry, is that we tend to focus only on these people, right? So give me your money right now, otherwise I don't care about you. And all our intent signals, everything which we try to buy media on, or we try to do anything about, is about, okay, are you willing to buy from me right now? If yes, it's fine. Otherwise, I don't care about you. However, the real world is very, very different and complex. And I would implore all of you to think about these different segments and the context your customers are in when you're defining. It's not to say that some brands, totally not do it well. So here is ASOS. Again, as Mark mentioned, they started first by fixing the basics, right? So when they started on search, their first thing was, how do we get the data right? So product attribution, think about so many SKUs they add to their catalog every single month. Think about all the data which they need about defining their products. But they didn't stop there. They said, okay, now that we have understood our products, tell us how can we fit our products to your needs. But they didn't stop there. They said, okay, now we have done that, but now we'll also give you some curated content every other week so that you are aware of the recent trends. But again, they didn't stop there. They said, okay, if you want some recommendations from us, just tell us what you like and we'll present some recommendations to you. And even if you don't want to do any of these things, you don't even want to type a single word with us in our interface, just send us a picture and we'll still recommend some products to you. So the reason why I showed this slide is not that, it's not that they're doing this one thing alone. They're doing multiple such things. And think about the customer obsession of understanding the intent and presenting the right content in front of them. Because as the problem scales, there's something which you have to do day in and day out. And then there are some other good examples. You've got IKEA after 2020, when the pandemic hit, all of their stores were closed. Suddenly, all of their furnishing knowledge, which you had in the stores, was of no use. So they worked really deeply on their product recommendations. And they just didn't look at one signal. They looked at 200 other signals to give you the right product. The other example is Sephora. They've linked customer intent really well with their loyalty program, and Beauty Insider is one of the most popular programs they have. So understanding intent is really complex, right? So think about millions of SKUs, millions of products, to be served to millions of customers across all of these new and old touch points, and with the added complexity of understanding their behavioral signals. So when you type in something in Google, Google doesn't just look at the type match of your text and give you results. They look at 3,000 different other signals to give you the right product which you need. So the scale of what we are talking about right now, and you can take away any of these dimensions, the scale will still be complex enough for you to manage. And that's where AI comes in. I know AI is a broad word. It's thrown around quite a lot. Right now, we are talking mainly about machine learning, and the fact, and this just one sliver of machine learning, a technique called deep learning, which is literally changing the world. We had the session in the morning. There are a lot of sessions today. We all know the power of machine learning. But essentially what's happening really with machine learning is that there's a paradigm shift of how we deal with computers, right? So all your software today, I would say 95% of the software today, is written based on instructions. So I tell the computer, if this happens, do this, right? And then the problem which we heard in so many panels today is that, I don't get the right kind of output because the computer doesn't take care of this scenario, that scenario, and 100 other scenarios. Because manually speaking, it's not possible. And the beautiful, beautiful thing which is happening with deep learning is the fact that computers have started to learn now, right? So think about all those channels and SKUs. A merchandiser sitting in a category manager, for example, can never understand all the scenarios which are happening across all these SKUs, across all the channels. But it can leverage the learning of these computers to be able to gain that superpower and become a great merchandiser. So here is an example. I know Spotify was mentioned earlier. Spotify has got, 400 million daily active customers. They've got 100 million songs. And think about the scale of the problem they're trying to solve. They provide weekly a curated playlist to each one of us, which is individual to me, and it will be different for you. And how do they do it? So they use collaborative filtering, which is they understand my interests, they match it with people which are similar to me, but they don't stop there. They say, okay, I think we need to also do product attribution, what in the retail world we call product attribution. So they semantically update all the songs with the buzzwords, what people are talking in social media, what's the latest news, and it's a dynamic thing, Right? It's not like we did it one time and then we are done. It's happening every other day. It's being repeated every single day. But they didn't stop there. They said, okay, now that we know that we are giving you songs, let me find out what kind of keynote you like, what kind of loudness you like. So they're really going into that deep customer obsession of what is specific to you, and based on that, they're recommending products. And this kind of thing is only possible if you use the right kind of AI. And there was a little bit of discussion also around similarity versus serendipity. So right now what they're doing is they are working on a slider where you can say that, oh, give me 5% of random songs so that I don't always listen to what I like. And the main thing with AI, right, in client conversations when I go and I say, this is something you need to use, so I find people on two sides of the spectrum. So either I'll find clients who will say, who have trust issues with AI, so they are like, no, I don't really trust it, I might need to do it myself. On the other side, I'll find clients who will say, why should I even need to be there? Let the machines run the world for me. I'll just look at the results. And I feel, as most things in life, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. Right? So you should think of AI not as something which will just work for you and you can go and have party. You should think of it as a Jarvis for your Iron Man. So where you take the decision, but now you've become 100 times more powerful, 1,000 times more powerful, because this is looking at the patterns and asking you to focus on the right areas. And lastly, I'll conclude by saying that these algorithms are now going to rule the world. So think of Carrefour, think of any other big companies like the Tesco's, Walmart, Sainsbury's. Every other brand wants to be on the top 3 result for any of the intent signals which you as consumers are giving to them. And specifically on the digital, there is a huge, huge opportunity, because now there is not one single shelf for coffee. There are thousands and millions of digital shelves which work individually and profoundly personal for you. And hence, if you have a great connection with your consumer as a retailer, there'll be brands who will be willing to pay you money just to be in front of the customer, right? And this is what we are calling these days as retail media revolution. So in essence, 3 main takeaways. First, the consumer signals are always evolving. It's not a one-time activity. It's not like you do persona mapping once every year and then you go back. Efficient execution for AI is happening today. Not 2 years down the line, not 5 years down the line. Right now, companies are using AI efficiently to solve for complex problems. And digital shelf will be a competitive advantage in the future. Thank you.